Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome Tuesday. How are we doing this morning? Yeah, okay. Cleo's almost awake, halfway there. Avatej, you look awake? You ready to go? Yeah? Arena? Good? Okay. Well, let's start then. So, yesterday I was talking to you about culture and about socialization, and I was trying to make a case to you. Hey, good morning, Crazy-O. I was trying to make a case to you yesterday that culture is probably the most important thing that us humans have, right? Because I kind of went into a whole kind of analogy about human beings and computers and hardware, and I said that when we're born, we have our bodies and our brain, right? We have the hardware, but we don't really have much software, right? We don't really know how to do anything or talk or anything at all, right? We're entirely helpless when we're born. And so, yes, our bodies need to grow, right, and become larger and stronger, but also our brains need quite a bit of things downloaded into them. Good morning. Our brains need a bunch of things downloaded into them in order for us to be successful, right? And I even kind of went so far as to describe that the process of that downloading, that socialization, the process of that actually changes our brain itself, right? So, and this is true of new learning, or like learning later in life, not just in childhood, but learning things actually changes the way your brain is wired, right? Your brain is not just a bucket, and then you go to school and teachers put knowledge into the bucket, right? That's not really how brains work, right? So the more you learn and the more you study, the more it actually changes how your brain operates, right? And there have been studies on this. The people who are experts in things, okay? So think of any kind of expert, any sort of scientific expert. Think of Elon Musk, maybe, even if you want to, I don't know. But those people, because they've done so much studying and because they know so much, their brain actually kind of works a little different, right? And that's why they're able to kind of invent things or see things that the rest of us don't see, right? Are they smart? Sure, absolutely. But they actually know so much that their brain has been wired in a way that they can see sort of patterns in the data, and they can kind of intuit things that most of us can't, right? And so, again, we do need to know things, right? We do need to be taught things in order to behave as humans, but that process also, that's what makes us human, right? That the learning of things is what wires and develops our brain, right? Which is incredible. I won't go through all of this here because we talked about it yesterday, but I would like you to know, of course, that culture is this. It's a system of shared beliefs and values and customs and behaviors and artifacts. Artifacts are things, physical objects that a culture uses. All right, these are all artifacts in order to kind of get that culture's people the things that they need. Okay, and so I showed you this yesterday. This is just the tip of the iceberg graphic is just the tip of the iceberg, because of course these are kind of some aspects of culture, but there's many more, right? This is just a selection of some of the things that culture kind of encodes, right? And we talked about a few of these things yesterday. Concepts of food, right? Humans can eat all kinds of things. We can eat them, but every culture has an idea about what things are food and what things are not food, right? In my culture, insects are not food, right? You can eat them. They're a great source of protein, but my culture says no, right? Bugs are gross, right? We don't eat those, right? Concepts of food. Personal space we talked about yesterday, right? How close do you stand to someone when you're speaking with them? Is it really close? Is it far away? Um, and of course, what we'll get to a little bit later today is kind of some of these sort of more social rules of culture here about communication and personal space and things like that. But later on, we'll get to things like sex and gender and ideas that cultures have about those things, okay? Um, I said this was an important term. Will probably say this word hundreds of times in this class, but socialization is important, right? This is the process of downloading that culture, right? We've all gone through it, and to be honest, we're still all going through it, right? We're still learning the rules of culture, right? How to sort of behave as humans. Sometimes we forget, and other people kind of try to get us to follow the rule again, right? But this is an important part of human behavior, the socialization process, teaching each other the rules of culture. We'll read about that in just a little bit. Yeah, and so I said good morning, and I said just to ensure that we're not getting confused, I use the word enculturation and socialization. Enculturation is kind of an anthropology word. Socialization is kind of a sociology word. They're almost the same thing, but not quite. But for our purposes in here, they mean the same thing. And I'll probably just use socialization. It's a little easier to deal with, okay? So just thought I'd mention that. Yeah, so during this process of socialization, this is how we kind of learn how to behave, right? And we also learn about our kind of roles in society, right? Because all of us, this is another sociology thing, we're all playing a bunch of different roles at the same time, right? Just like an actor in a movie, right? So right now, what role am I playing? Yeah, right? I am playing the role of teacher, right? I'm sitting up here, right? I'm speaking to you, I'm asking you questions, right? I am performing the role of teacher. What are you performing the role of? Yeah, right? You are performing the role of student, right? You're all sitting there, you're all very engaged and excited and interested to hear what I have to say and to learn new things, right? Yeah, you're performing the role of student, but at other times of the day, you'll be performing other roles, right? You might be performing the role of friend, right? Maybe you'll call your parents or something and you'll be performing the role of son or daughter, right? Maybe you'll see a girlfriend or a boyfriend later and you'll perform the role of girlfriend or boyfriend, right? We're constantly kind of switching between roles that we play in society, right? And we know how to do that because we have been socialized, right? We've been taught kind of the rules of behavior, how to be the things that we are, right? I'm also up here performing the role of man. Thank you very much. I'll be playing the role of man today. I'm also performing that role, right? So we're sometimes performing occupational roles, right? We're performing a job. Sometimes we're performing relationship roles, friend, son, daughter, whatever. Sometimes we're performing gender roles, right? And our society kind of creates a bit of a model for, what a man is and what a woman is, and we're generally kind of encouraged to follow those rules, right? And we can talk about those a little bit later. And we kind of get to the point where, number one, we're very familiar with the roles that we're taught, okay? So we know if somebody's not acting correct, right? We know if somebody's acting weird, right? If they're not if they're not performing their role, right? Or if they're not following social rules, we know very quickly that something's weird with this person, right? Something's a little strange. We pick it up very, very quickly, right? So before we kind of get into that, I would like us to read just a little bit from our textbook. And so it's in Microsoft Teams, and it's a PDF textbook, so we don't, let me just find it here. It's a PDF textbook, and it is Let me just create a new folder for it here. Now, it may be a little bit of an ambitious read for you, or it may not. We'll see. It's actually what it is it's a first year textbook for sociology, is what it is, from university. So it's just a little bit above where we would normally read. But I think it's well written, and I think that we'll be able to read sections of it without too much trouble. And it might be kind of fun to read a university thing, right? So I just want you to read a short section here. It's section 3.2, Elements of Culture. Again, if you go into Microsoft Teams, you'll see it under Files, and then there's a folder that says Text, and you'll find it in there. So just read a few pages, and the text is going to talk about the difference between values and beliefs, and how we encourage people to act according to values. And then, of course, there's a question about norms, and I'll ask you about some cultural norms, either from your culture or from this culture, either way, okay? Is that okay? Is that good? Can we dig into that? Okay, let's dig into it. Good morning, David. Is everybody okay? Do you see it? Or not yet? Yeah, there you go. You guys got it. You guys got it? You got it. You got it. You guys okay? That is it. All right. And David, we're just reading this. It's in Microsoft Teams. Yeah, under Files and in a folder called Text. So just quick check-in. I think you should be close to done there. How's the how's the reading level like in terms of like is it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being gosh this is so hard and 10 this is so easy. How hard of a read is this? 10 super easy, 1 super hard.
7.
But a 7, so kind of on the easy side, but not super easy.
Not super easy.
Not super easy. Okay, Cleo, what do you think? It's about 6. It's a little tough. Okay, a little tougher. Bosco, how's it going with you? Okay. Where is it though? Is it super hard, super easy?
7.
Yeah.
7.
Okay. Avatej? 7, 8. Okay, so not bad. Arena? 7. Okay. Mir?
6.
6. David?
7.
7. Okay, that's cool. And that's okay. As I say, don't don't feel bad about that. This is a more ambitious thing than we would normally read, but that's okay. We'll get from it what we need. Can I just give you a couple more minutes and then we'll talk? Okay. Look at you guys reading university texts. A bunch of smarty pants as you are. Okay, let's give this a shot here. Let's see how we did. This section of the textbook is talking about people's, well, not people's, but a culture or a society's values and beliefs. So, what's a value? Who's going to help me out? Mir, help me out with this one.
Culture standard for describing what is good just in society.
Right. So values are things that society thinks are good, right? And Let's see. So Chen, what kind of examples do they give us in the text of cultural values? Things that are good.
Ahmed and then Donald.
Yeah. You can use an example from the textbook. What did they give us an example of for cultural values?
You can break it down.
Okay. Or if you want to think of what things do our cultures value? What things do our cultures say are good?
Wealth is good and importance.
Wealth is good?
And importance.
Yeah, right? We often aspire to be wealthy, right? We want to be wealthy. We often respect and look up to people who are wealthy. Not all the time, but sometimes, right? Wealth is good, right? What else is good?
Good deeds.
What?
Good deeds.
Good deeds. Yeah, good deeds. Doing nice things for other people, right? Kindness, right? Helpfulness, compassion, right? Those are values. And of course, as they mentioned, sometimes those values are hard to live up to, right? They have a value, and I think most of our cultures have a value of monogamy, right? When you get married to someone, you're not supposed to go and have sex with a bunch of other people, right? You're not supposed to do that. Do people do that sometimes? They do, right? They cheat on their husbands, they cheat on their wives. And again, the ideal is that the value is that monogamy, right? Is that you stay with the one person that you're married to. But for some people, living up to that ideal is very difficult, right? So values are things that society thinks are good, right? Things that you should try to be. But then what are beliefs? Arena, what are beliefs?
Those are plans.
Yeah.
Plans or convictions.
Did you say tenets?
Plans? I don't know.
Tenets, yeah, or convictions?
We have a whole spectrum.
Yeah, things that society thinks are true, okay? And so if you go to university, you will get a good job and be successful, right? We talked about that one when we talked about critical thinking. That's a belief that society has, and it's a belief that many of us hold as well, right? Again, I think it's a reasonably good one, but it's a belief nonetheless, right? Can you think of any other beliefs, things that society thinks are true?
If you work hard, you can be successful.
Yeah, if you work hard, you can be successful, right? That's another cultural belief. What other beliefs are there? Things societies think are true. That might be a tough one. That's okay. As long as we know what it is, I'm happy. So we have all of these cultural values, right? We said that sometimes it's hard to live up to those values, but how do societies kind of encourage people to sort of live those values? How do they encourage them to follow the rules? Yeah, David, help me out. How does society encourage people to follow the rules and live up to their values? By what?
By suggesting.
Suggesting what's good and okay.
What's good or bad.
Right? So we definitely do that, right? We definitely kind of tell people what good behavior is and what bad behavior is, right? That's kind of the job of our parents or our caregivers, right? To teach us what's good and bad, right? Teach us how to behave. But how else do we encourage each other to follow the rules? Avatish, help me out here.
I'm thinking like maybe reward.
Okay. Like in what way?
you've done good things, you get reward maybe?
Yeah, right? So when we do things, right, when we follow societal rules or when we model societal values, sometimes we get rewarded for it, right? Courtesy and kindness is valued, right? And so when we hold the door for someone, they often reward us, right? They're like, "Oh, thank you." Right? That's so nice. We get a little reward, right? Can you think of other little rewards that we might get? Maybe not even little, but other ways in which we're rewarded? People might say something, right? They might say thank you. What else? How else might they reward us? The text mentions a couple things, right? Crazio, do you see another reward that people might get if they model societal values? How might they be rewarded? With what? Yeah, right? You might get respect, right? If you live values, right? If your society says you should be kind and compassionate and generous, and if you are kind and compassionate and generous, people may give you their respect, right? That's a reward as well, right? Respect is a reward, right? Kind words are a reward, right? People may be wanting to hang out with you and talk to you. That's kind of a social reward, right? They mention in the text that if you sell a lot at your company, you might get a financial reward, right? You're working hard, you're doing a really good job. Here's a little extra money, right? Here's a bonus for you, right? So sometimes we're rewarded with money and things. Sometimes we're rewarded with the way other people behave toward us, right? They want to hang out with us, they give us respect, they say nice things to us, right? Maybe they flirt with us even a little bit if we're lucky, right? We're rewarded. How are people punished, right? Because the other side of that is if people don't live up to societal values, if they don't follow societal rules, we punish them just a little bit, right? How do we do that?
Jail.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you really violate social rules, right, we put you in jail, right, as a punishment.
Companies like
They won't what?
use that person to change job.
Sure, right? Maybe you won't get your bonus, or maybe you'll get demoted, right? You'll be pushed to a lower job, or maybe they'll just fire you, right? So those are more extreme forms of punishment, but yes. How else do we kind of punish each other?
And people
Won't get in touch with them?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a little more than that. But yeah.
If someone is accused to murder someone, I won't get in touch with you.
We're okay. You guys are really going to a dark place this morning. There's firings and murders and it's true, right? People who violate social rules, you might not want to talk to them very much anymore, right? If we value kindness, right? If we value compassion and someone is unkind and not compassionate all the time, we might say to ourselves, yeah, I don't think I want to hang around with that person anymore, right? And you might kind of distance yourself, right? You might not talk to them or call them or message them, right? You may kind of a little bit of space, right? Give yourself a little bit of space. And really that's the most common way that us humans punish each other for not living up to social rules, is that we kind of withdraw our attention, right? We withdraw our closeness, right? We kind of back off. Good morning. We kind of back off a little bit, right? Yeah, I forget which culture it is. I read about this in anthropology. And it's a culture where it's like a simple culture, maybe like a hunter-gatherer culture. There's just small groups of people living out in the wilderness. And one of their more harsh punishments, because they don't have police or jail or anything like that, right? They're living off in the middle of nowhere. If you do something really bad, the punishment is that they will ignore you. So the entire group of people, your friends, your family, everyone in the little cultural group will just pretend you don't exist for a month. And so nobody will talk about you, nobody will look at you. If you say something, it'll be like you're not there, and you'll basically be invisible to them for an entire month, right? And it doesn't sound like much, but it is brutal, right? Because people, you're just invisible, right? They ignore you for an entire month. And so often that's a very common way that humans punish other humans. If you're breaking social rules, if you're not following social values, then we kind of don't socialize with people very much, right? Maybe we don't talk to them as much, or we don't message them. We just kind of back off, right? And then when people follow social rules, we give them more social attention, right? We talk to them more, we hang out with them more. And so by doing this, we're constantly kind of nudging people in the right direction, right? If they break social rules, we're kind of withdrawing our attention, right? If they follow them, then we kind of give them more social attention. And we do this really without thinking. And we all kind of do it, right? We're all kind of engaged in this process of socialization, right? Sometimes we break the rules and we get little punishments. Sometimes we follow them and we get little rewards. We punish other people a little bit or reward other people. And we're all kind of doing this at the same time, right? We're all kind of maintaining social order by kind of, little rewards, little punishments, just here and there, right? Sometimes it's just a simple, hey, thanks, that was great, right? Sometimes it's a little side eye, or whatever it is, just little things, right? And we kind of constantly do this without really even thinking about it, right? And it's a way in which, again, we're constantly encouraging people to follow the rules. The last piece of the puzzle here is norms, right? These are norms of behavior, normal behaviors that we do. Can you give me an example of one social norm? One thing that we do? Chen, give me one thing. When we're interacting with other people, what's a normal thing?
We shake hands.
Yeah, right? Well, we used to anyway. But yeah, we do, right? When you meet someone for the first time, or maybe sometimes even when you see someone you know very well, right? Shake their hand, right? That's one. Give me another one.
Eye contact when you're speaking to them.
Yeah, eye contact, right? I think we all come from cultures where when you make eye contact with someone, that means I see you, I'm paying attention to you, I'm listening, I'm present, right? I'm here, right? Of course, it's possible to overdo eye contact, right? If it's too much, it gets uncomfortable, right? So there's kind of rules to how much is okay, but yeah, eye contact is important, right? That's an important one. What else? Other social norms that we follow. Yeah, right. We have all these little polite words, right? These little niceties, right? Please, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Right? I didn't mean to step on your foot. Canadians use "I'm sorry" quite a bit because we're sorry for all kinds of things. I guess I don't know. True, right? We have all these little words that are used to interact with people. What else? Distance between. Yeah, right. We have kind of an appropriate social distance, right? Depending on our relationship with the person. If we know them very well, or if we have an intimate relationship with them, they get to come close. If we have a more distant relationship, they stand further away, right? Or at least that's the comfortable thing. Yeah. Proxemics is what it's called. What else?
And we're using forks and spoons.
Right, right. When we eat, we have a particular, we have a whole bunch of rules for eating, right? Fork, spoon, right? How to hold them, how to cut with them, maybe chopsticks, right? Maybe your hands, depends on the culture, what is kind of appropriate and polite. When we chew, mouth open or closed? Usually, usually closed, right? Some places it doesn't matter, but in a lot of cultures, yeah, you're supposed to chew with your mouth closed, right? What a couple other social norms. What about touching? What about touching other people? That's kind of a complicated one, right? Some people you're kind of allowed to touch, right, in certain places. Some people not so much, right? And again, it's just like the physical distance, right? The closer the relationship, the more you get to touch the other person, right? The further the relationship, touching is not really appropriate, right? And again, cultures are different, right? Some cultures are more touchy, some cultures are less touchy, but yeah, that's another one too. Let's see. Let's think of two more, and then we'll have a break. Two more social norms, way we behave.
Brushing your teeth in the morning.
Yeah, brushing your teeth is a normal behavior, right? What about when you go into an elevator? When you go into an elevator, which way do you face?
The door.
Right, you always face the door. Do you have to? No, there's nothing to look at in there, right? All the walls really look the same, but we always face the door, right? And interestingly, that's one of those kind of breaching experiments. I don't know if you read that section in the text, but sometimes they do experiments where somebody will, they'll press the button, the doors will open in the elevator, they'll walk in, and then they'll stare at the back wall. And they wait to see what other people do when they come in to the elevator, because of course we usually stand facing the door, and you don't look at anyone, right? You kind of just like look anywhere else. But sometimes they try to see what people will do, right? What happens when you break the social rule? And sometimes other people will do it too. They'll start looking at the back wall because they think, oh, this is what we're doing now, I guess. And so they kind of follow along. What if you're a guy, what if you go into the bathroom and you go to the urinals? Which urinal do you choose? This is a social norm. If there's a guy standing there at the urinal already, do you stand right beside him? No, no. You go like far away, right? If he's on one end, you go to the other end, right? If there's two guys there, then you go in the middle, right? But there are rules, right? You don't just like go right up next to another person while they're peeing, right? That's the social norm, right? But it's true. It's true. And there's all kinds of these, right? There's probably like thousands and thousands of them that we, again, have internalized and never really think about, right? We interact with other people, we say please and thank you, we make eye contact with them, we shake hands with them sometimes, we choose the right urinal in the bathroom, we face the right way in the elevator, right? We do all these things. We get on the SkyTrain and we don't really make eye contact with other people because you're really not supposed to. We know all these little rules, and we kind of know them, again, without being taught, which is really interesting. Okay, would you like to take a little break? Great, I would too. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, I have a short few video clips just to demonstrate these social norms in kind of a funny way, okay? Okay, people, and we are officially back. So, I asked you to read a section from the textbook there. I know it was a little challenging, but that's okay. And I wanted you to pay attention to these three things, right? And of course, one of them was the difference between values and beliefs, right? So, values are kind of the ideas, the things that society judges to be good, right, and correct. And so they give us a bit of a blueprint for how we should try to behave, right? How we should try to live our lives, what we should try to be, right? Whereas beliefs are things that people hold to be true, right? So it's what's good versus what's true, okay? Yeah, and so we said that people are encouraged to act according to cultural values by a system of rewards and punishments, right? And again, those punishments can be extreme, right? We can throw people in jail, right, or things like that. But more often than not, punishments are really quite subtle, right? We don't speak to people, right? Or we give them a little bit of side eye, or maybe make a kind of a snarky comment at them or something, right? Just little pokes, right? little pokes to try and get people to follow the rules, right? And again, I think I gave the example a couple days ago. If I showed up here tomorrow in a dress, people would probably say something, right? They would probably look at me a little strangely, right? Some people might make some comments about me. And again, all of those things would be encouragement to follow the rules, right? Follow the gender rules. Men don't wear dresses in our society, and you're wearing a dress, so stop it, right? That's the message that people would be giving me, right? And again, there's more to talk about there, but we'll get to that a little bit later, okay? And the last thing, norms, right? So these are norms of behavior, the way that we act when we interact with others, right? And you gave me a bunch of examples: eye contact, handshaking, etc., right? Some of these are formal. They are written rules, right? Things you cannot do. Sometimes you see them on signs or in rule books or in laws or whatever. But many of them are informal, right? There's no law that says that you have to shake someone's hand, right? There's no law that says that you have to make eye contact with people. But that's the norm, right? That's how we normally behave. And so to kind of illustrate this, I wanted to show you just a few clips from a television show. I don't know, has anyone ever seen or heard of Seinfeld before? No? It's on Netflix right now if you're interested. But Seinfeld's a show that ran for about 10 years, as you can see in the 1990s. Really successful show. And it does a good job. Seinfeld does a really good job of dealing with social norms. Okay, so the way they kind of write a lot of their scripts, the way they write a lot of their shows, one character breaks a social norm, and then the other characters react to it. Right? That's kind of where they get their laughs. They get their laughs from finding social norms, things that you don't normally think about, that we don't normally think about. Then they get a character to break that rule, and then they kind of get laughs out of that. That's how they do it. And so I want to show you a few of these, and again, when I show you them, your job is simply to watch the clip and just identify, maybe identify two things. Identify what the social norm is that's being broken, okay? So what's the social rule they're breaking? And if possible, how do the characters try to get the person to follow the rule, right? Are there any punishments or rewards that you can see going on? And you may see them and you may not, okay? But that's what I want you to do. Now, I can't stream this on my channel here because it's a copyright thing. So for online people, the videos are in Microsoft Teams in the little folder called videos, and you'll see in there's a file that says Seinfeld videos, and you can watch the videos in in that movie file, okay? But we'll watch it here in class. So watch those, and then we'll come back and talk about them. I think there's 3 or 4, okay? So online people, will see you in just a few minutes. Okay, so four short clips. The first one with the woman in the black and white dress. What was the social rule that was being violated?
She was wearing the same clothes.
She seemed to be wearing the same thing over and over again, right? And so, what's the rule? Yeah, right. We're kind of supposed to dress differently every day, and of course, we only have, a certain amount of clothes, right? So we rotate them. But you're actually supposed to wear different things, right? And she appears to be wearing exactly the same dress every day, right? What's Jerry's reaction to that?
Curious?
He's definitely curious, right? He's like, I've got to unlock this mystery. But then, as it goes on, what does he start to do?
Go crazy.
A little bit, right? He starts to freak out a little bit, right? Why was he? Why do you think he was getting so nervous, or why do you think he was getting so freaked out?
Because
Because
it doesn't change since.
yeah, and what does that mean? Or what does Jerry think it means? Yeah. What? Yeah. What? David, what were you saying? What's that? It's weird, right? It's weird. Maybe she's weird, right? Maybe she's a little woo, right? Jerry doesn't know, but again, we kind of expect people to follow social norms, right? And when they don't, it's like, oh, what's up with that, right? Is this person strange? We don't know, right? And we start to kind of lean back a little bit, right? We start to distance ourselves. And Jerry does the same thing, right? He's like, what is going on here? Is she wearing the same dress? And he's kind of, he freaks out a little bit, right? As a spoiler, in that episode, my fiance and I just watched a bunch of Seinfelds, so I know them all now. But in that one, he actually never figures it out because he sees the picture. And he's like, oh my God. And so he opens a closet that's in the living room to see. And then I think there's a bunch of other stuff in there. And then she comes back in her bathrobe and she hasn't changed yet. And then she's like, what are you doing looking through my stuff? And she gets angry and throws him out. So he never finds out. And I think she's throwing him out of her apartment. And he's like, just give me one look in your closet. Just one look. But he never finds out if it's the same dress or if she has a bunch of them. But anyway, yeah, that's the thing, right? We're expected to wear kind of something different every day, right? And when someone violates the rule, it's weird, right? What was the second one? Was the restaurant, right? Oh no, the second one was the Snickers bar, right? So what was the social rule there? Yeah, and do we do that? No, right? That's weird, right? So again, not only do we have rules for what food should be eaten and what foods can't be eaten, but there's also ways in which you eat food, right? Chocolate bars are supposed to be eaten with your hands, right? You peel the wrapper down and you eat them like a normal person, right? So, but then pardon me, but then what starts to happen in that little clip?
Everyone falls.
Yeah, everyone starts to do it, right? So you see people cutting up cookies, people cutting up donuts. Jerry says he sees someone eating M&Ms with a spoon, right? And so that's the other thing about social norms, that sometimes they change, right? And sometimes we start to, if somebody breaks a social rule, sometimes we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then people copy them, right? And again, celebrities and influencers are good for this kind of thing, right? They break social rules, and then because they have a lot of status and respect, people copy them, right? Often. So sometimes breaking social rules gets punishment, sometimes it gets reward, but sometimes it actually winds up changing the social rule, right? And so you see lots of people copying. Although at the end of that clip, the woman Elaine, well, what does Elaine do? Because she's trying to punish people. What's she do? Yeah, she's freaking out too, right? She stands up in the little restaurant. She's like, "What is wrong with all of you people?" Right? The third one is the restaurant. What happens at the restaurant? What's the rule? The social rule? Right. Wash your hands, right? Especially if you're coming out of a stall, right? Definitely wash your hands, and especially if you're going to make food with your hands, right? But as you can see, the chef and the father of Jerry's date doesn't wash his hands. And what's Jerry's reaction? He kind of panics. He kind of freaks out. In the show, he's a bit of a germaphobe. He doesn't. He's really worried about germs. So that's like, yeah, that's way too much for him. The last one with the chip. So George he's actually at a funeral, believe it or not. And what's the social rule there? What's this?
Keep it twice.
No double dipping. Yeah, do not dip your chip, take a bite, and then dip again. What do you think? Is that the rule? Do you guys double dip? No double dipping? No? Never? What if it's only your dip? Then? Yeah? What if it's like with family? Can you double dip with family or no? It's okay with family, but not with like people you don't know, right? So George is at a funeral with a bunch of people he doesn't know. Should he be double dipping? Probably not. So the rule is no double dipping your chip, right? And so what happens as a result? What does Timmy do?
Try to correct this.
Yeah. Yeah, right? So I told you that when people violate social norms, other people try to get them to follow the rule, right? And again, usually it's quite subtle. Here, for laughs, it's quite extreme, and he's like, "Give me a chip," and they're fighting it, right? And it's funny. But in real life, yeah, we try to get people to follow the rule, and that's exactly what Timmy is trying to do, right? Timmy's trying to get George to follow the rule, right? So he's doing something that's very common in kind of human behavior. Here it's just, it's exaggerated for comedy, right? But again, the show is really good at doing this, at finding situations where they can break a social rule that you never thought about, and then have the other characters kind of react to it, and it works. It's funny, right? Okay, let me look at where we are. We did that. Okay, we saw all those. Sorry, let me just figure out where I am here. Oh, right, okay. Okay, so what we're going to do tomorrow is, I'm trying to convince you here, and I think I've convinced you, but of the idea that we've all been socialized, right? We have all learned various messages and ideas and beliefs and values and norms and all kinds of things from our respective cultures, right? And we continue to learn them, right? And so you're kind of, if some of you are new in Canada, you're going to undergo kind of a process of a re-socialization, right? There's kind of some norms and values and beliefs that we have here that maybe differ from at home, right? And you're trying to figure out what those are, right? How do things work here? And so not only are we in a process of socialization at home, but definitely if we move or if we visit another culture, there's a period of trying to figure out what those norms and values and beliefs are, right? The other thing I want to kind of drive home is that a lot of this happens without without being directly taught, and really without us kind of knowing that we're learning these things, right? So in all of those, let's say the Snickers bar, right? I think that when we were watching that clip, you all very quickly figured out that that's weird, right? Probably within a few seconds, right? You were watching it and then you're like, okay, what's he doing with the fork and knife, right? That's bizarre. But did anyone ever teach you, okay, Mir, sit down, I'm going to teach you how to eat a candy bar? No, right? Nobody ever did that, right? That's strange. We just know, right? We just kind of know what's normal, right? We know how to do these kind of things, right? And so we are socialized all the time, and a lot of times we're being socialized without our knowledge, right? It's happening, we're learning these things without knowing that we're learning them. And so when we see things like the dress, the Snickers bar, maybe not so much the hand washing, but maybe the double dipping, for the most part, we probably can't remember a time when we were specifically taught that. We just know it, right? And we know when we see something like that, we just know that it's weird, right? Or we know that, like, no, that's not the way you're supposed to do it, right? And so tomorrow what we'll do is we'll do a little exercise that kind of explores that idea a little further. It might be kind of fun to see how it goes. I always enjoy this exercise, but we don't really have enough time for it today, so I'm going to stop us there. Does anyone have any questions or concerns or things they want to say? No? No? Okay. I'll let you pack it up then. I hope you have a nice afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow, except for some of you that I will see very shortly. But yeah, tomorrow we'll kind of do that activity. But until then, cheerio.